All right, it's 10:30. We'll get the meeting started promptly on time here. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Rihm Kenworth's Let's Talk Shop virtual event. My name is Chad Seth. I'm Director of Sales for Rihm Kenworth. And with me today is Brett Duarte. He's the Fleet Sales Manager of Electrification for Kenworth. Today we're going to present Kenworth's EV options for trucks going towards the future here. During the meeting, if you have questions, please use the chat button at the bottom of your screen, or there's a Q&A button that you can hit as well. And at the end of the meeting, we'll go through the questions and answer to the best we can. So with that, I'll introduce Brett, and Brett, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Good morning to everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your interest in electrification. Really a very exciting time in our industry. A lot of people think of electrification as future, and that really has been the case in past years, but I'm excited to say that we've got two different products in production today. We're delivering trucks to customers, and our customers are seeing the benefits of these products and really a lot of excitement in the industry. So very excited to have our products here. I'd like to just kind of introduce you to electrification, show you some of the details about our products, talk about charging and infrastructure, and hopefully you'll see that there's some opportunities to start looking at converting some of your fleet to EV. So as Chad mentioned, as you've got questions, go ahead and enter those in, and we'll make sure we address those at the end. I am just going to turn off my video to make sure my audio quality stays good. So kind of getting started here, our customers need some assistance as they look to convert a portion of their fleet to zero emissions. And we've really developed a consultative process, and a comprehensive one. We want to bring you an end-to-end solution to help you identify these trucks, put in charging infrastructure, identify grants and incentives to ease the transition to zero emissions. So it's really about working closely with you to identify the right types of applications, the right types of trucks where these EVs are going to be successful in your fleet. So it's really important that we understand the routes, the application. We need to make sure that there's an understanding of the payload and the range considerations, the charge times of these trucks. It is not as simple as just pulling out a diesel truck and inserting an EV and going about your business. There's certainly some considerations and some changes to your operation that needs to happen. So we're here to assist you with that process. Typically, our customers have a lot of questions with regards to charging and infrastructure. This is something new to most customers, unless you're running EV forklifts or EV yard tractors. So really the initial conversation is, how do I charge this pilot truck or these few trucks I'm putting into our fleet? And we can help you with that. We've got a line of chargers, but really it's important to start thinking with where your fleet is going to end up in the future and plan for that overall charge strategy and power strategy. And that's really where infrastructure comes in. How do we ensure that we've got a cost-effective energy scheme to charge these trucks as my fleet grows? How do I make sure that I've got resiliency in case there's blackouts or power outages? And then how do I plan for the future as I grow my fleet? Shown last here is grants and incentives, certainly not the last step. That's usually at the beginning of our conversations. And we have dedicated grant writers, both one full-time employee dedicated to truck incentives and one to charging and infrastructure. So we're here to support you in finding grant funding depending on where the trucks operate. We're currently tracking about 70 grants that are open or will open this year throughout North America. So where are we at as far as volume in North America, the zero emissions market? Today, 2022, we brought both of our products to market we're in production of both of our product lines, but it's still relatively small production. And even the largest of customers that are looking at EVs, they're early adopters. They're trying small quantities of trucks to learn about how they work in their fleet and how to start to grow that. So it's really an early adopter market. And it's good that you're looking at it early and before it becomes something that you have to convert to. So most fleets are looking at it from an education standpoint, but as you can see, it ramps up significantly. And it's really being driven by these four main sections, which I'll cover in a little bit more detail on the following slides. But by 2030, we are expecting that about 30% of our production will be zero emissions. That is a significant portion of our volume. 2030 is not far away. That is right around the corner. So we're investing significantly to support this market, to develop the products that you need for various applications in order to support that demand. Today, that's battery electric vehicles. We are investing significantly as well in hydrogen fuel cell, which is essentially an electric truck that's fueled by a hydrogen fuel cell. And we don't think that one technology is ultimately going to win. We think there's actually a place for both of these technologies. So again, really exciting time in our industry. It's going to be really fun to watch. Regulation is a significant driver for the zero emissions demand that we're seeing in North America. Starting on the left, if you look at California, they've really already implemented mandatory sales volumes on the OEM that says we have to sell certain percentages of zero emissions trucks into the state if we want to continue to sell diesel. And you can see that it ramps up really quickly, all the way to 100% by 2040. Additionally, they've got proposals for fleets of certain sizes where any new purchases post 2027 would have to be zero emissions. Now, California is really not alone. There's an agreement that includes 15 other states that they call the Memorandum of Understanding. This essentially includes Canada as well. And these states are basically saying, hey, we support what California is doing, and we're going to adopt similar or identical regulations, possibly implemented at a slightly different timeline, but they support what California is doing. So that doesn't mean that there's not grants and incentives in these other states or that these other states will not be converting over. It's really kind of a matter of time, but a significant portion of the country is evaluating that. And then, of course, we're seeing increased pressure from a federal level as administration rolls out their climate policy. They've announced 100% zero emissions on the government fleet, the infrastructure bill. So we're going to continue to see that driving regulatory demand. Green image and sustainability. This is really pretty self-explanatory, but a significant number of our customers are coming to us to help them meet their sustainability goals. And in prior years, there weren't options for fleets, other than running clean diesels to reduce their carbon footprint. And depending on the way the company is structured, their fleet can be a significant portion of their carbon footprint. With zero emissions vehicles now, there's an excellent opportunity for them to bring that footprint down. We're also seeing a significant amount of pressure from our fleet's customers who say, hey, I want a company to transport my goods sustainably. So that's a significant driver. And then there's some marketing benefit that can be had from that. So a lot of our customers are turning these into driving banners, marketing campaigns. So leveraging that benefit. There are some significant driver and operational benefits. Kenworth products have always been focused on driver ergonomics, especially in this driver shortage. Our trucks are built about visibility, excellent maneuverability, the fit and finish, and really just building a comfortable platform for our drivers. Now we've paired that with a zero emissions, vibration-free, nearly silent powertrain, and drivers absolutely love the driving experience of EVs. It's been pretty satisfying to see how quickly drivers accept these vehicles and love them. The transition to EVs is far easier than when we were maybe converting from manual transmissions to automated. So that's really exciting to see. And then the operational benefits are that these trucks are so quiet. If you're operating trucks in areas where you've got noise concerns, there's now an opportunity to maybe expand your hours or to run trucks into areas without concern for noise. It's important to be transparent about the cost of these vehicles. We're working very hard to bring the cost down, but they're about 3 times the cost of diesel without grants and incentives. So that's a significant capital purchase. And then that requires charging and infrastructure as well. But there are cases where we can show total cost of ownership benefit compared to diesel, or at least reduce that. And part of that is the fuel savings is significant. Typically expect about a 50% savings in fuel. You're now paying for electricity instead of diesel. And, the past couple of weeks, we've seen diesel really increase. We're expecting diesel to continue to increase at a rate much higher than electricity. So we expect that 50% to grow. Again, that's kind of an industry average. The trucks and the chargers are smart, so they can take advantage of the lowest possible energy rates. Typically, fleets are charging these trucks overnight when the rates are the lowest. And then another benefit is the energy predictability. So now you're dealing with a fluctuating diesel market. Your prices are constantly changing. Your costs are changing. You're maybe having to negotiate surcharges due to fuel costs. With electricity, you know what you're going to be paying 6 months ahead for your electricity. You can forecast out your energy costs, so very predictable and help you plan your business more efficiently. As far as maintenance, significant opportunity for reduced maintenance. Expect about 30 to 40% reduced maintenance costs on EVs. And that's because there's 40% fewer parts on an EV than there are on a diesel. And of those parts, even fewer moving parts. So we've got very few moving parts. We've eliminated the engine and the after treatment. There are still some maintenance requirements, but there's very little lubrication. There's a cooling system. The brake system's extended. So again, huge opportunity for reduced maintenance. And we've seen that kind of in the bus industry. It's a pretty demanding application. They've been running EVs for a long time. A lot of my customers are running electric forklifts and yard tractors, and they see that type of savings. So it depends on what kind of equipment you're coming out of, but that's going to be a significant cost and total cost of ownership benefit. And then, of course, the incentives on the vehicle and the infrastructure are critical at bringing that total cost of ownership down. And we typically work with your utility provider who's interested in EVs. They're trying to gain experience as well, putting in charging stations and helping their customers transition. And oftentimes they have special rates or programs where they will provide the power from the grid to support your charging needs. So kind of transitioning from why EV and getting into the product. This is our K270 and K370E. This is a truck that we build and sell as diesel, and it was really the perfect truck to convert to electric. Outstanding visibility, great turn radius, just a really nice truck to drive. It's perfectly suited for that pickup and delivery and that last mile application. Now we're showing it here with a box van, and that's a pretty common application for fleets to look at. Short haul trucks are home every night, so it's really ideally suited for EV. That being said, we've got some adjustability on this platform to support some vocational applications. We're putting bucket trucks, aerial units, flatbeds, service bodies, all sorts of different applications on this truck. It's available as a Class 6 and a Class 7. I'll talk a little bit about the weight of the chassis. We offer it with 3 different wheelbase options, typically to support your standard 24, 26, and 30-foot box sizes. On the next slide, we'll talk about our 3 battery choices. So that really allows you to optimize the spec for your needs. And it can charge in as little as 1 hour for our short range version or 2 hours for our long range version. It's a direct drive powertrain. That's a partnership with Dana. We're using just a direct drive midship motor that kind of mounts in the same location as the transmission. I'll show you the layout on a following slide. It's disc brake available and available with collision mitigation. So all of the safety systems that our customers are used to today are available on our EVs. We do have openings in 3rd quarter of this year. So I think we're one of the only, if not the only, electric manufacturer that's in production with openings this year to support our customers. So this is what I mean by a direct drive powertrain. We've got a direct drive motor, no transmission, no shifting. So what the customer or the driver is going to notice is that, wow, this truck is responsive. It accelerates quickly and smoothly. And then we're just using a conventional rear axle, conventional drive lines, conventional brakes. So all of the same components that you're used to working on today, you're used to servicing, your part stocking, those are all shared with diesel. Really impressive horsepower and torque from this motor, up to 496 horsepower. But we are turning that down so that we delight the driver. We want to give them great performance from this truck. We want it to outperform diesel, but we also don't want you abusing hardware. We don't want you wearing out tires. So we really meter performance to provide that diesel-like performance. Top speed is 70 miles per hour, enough grade startability, and great ability at speed. That same impressive horsepower and torque that we get for traction, we also get for regenerative braking. So you let off the throttle, the vehicle slows down, much like an engine brake, but much stronger. That puts battery energy back into the batteries to extend your range, but it also extends brake life. So if a driver's driving responsibly, they're really only using the brakes at that last couple feet to bring the vehicle to a complete stop or in a panic situation. I did see a chat question come in. I did forget to mention how heavy the truck is. We'll talk about that a little bit here. So when we advertise 100 to 200 miles of range, we're doing that with 3 different batteries that range from 141 kilowatt hour to 282 kilowatt hour. And a kilowatt hour is essentially equivalent to capacity of the battery. Think of it as gallons of diesel. So that's what gives us our conservative 100 to 200 miles. That's real world range that you'll see from this product, fully loaded day-to-day operations in all climates, considering battery aging. We want to take a conservative approach here because this is really the first time as an OEM we've ever had to advertise the range of a vehicle. So we want to make sure that this truck performs successfully. We've got tools as well to analyze your routes, to look at the routes, the duty cycle, the temperatures, everything that influences range to help you plan for putting EVs into your fleet. As far as weight, when we say base weight, we're about 2,000 pounds heavier to start than a diesel truck. So cabin chassis, 100-mile battery pack, you're going to be about 12,500 pounds for the cabin chassis. Let's say you put a box and a lift gate at 5,000 pounds. You still got, what is that, about 9,000 pounds of payload capability on this truck in a 26K non-CDL version. If you do upgrade to a 282 or 200-mile battery, that's an additional 2,000 pounds. So you're going to be about 14,700 pounds cabin chassis. So not significant, but something to consider if you're grossing out before you cube out. So weight sensitive applications, that's definitely something to be conscious of. Now you are given a 2,000 pound extra allowance for running a zero emissions truck. That does not apply to the Class 6 vehicle because of CDL guidelines, but that is something that applies to Class 8 vehicles and Class 7. As I mentioned, you can charge this truck in as little as 1 hour to 2 hours. But again, most of our fleets are looking at overnight charging or slower charging that allows you to charge overnight, take advantage of those low rates, and also your lowest cost of charging. At the same time, we've also got fleets that are sizing chargers to give them that operational flexibility. Hey, I've got a driver coming in at lunch break. I want them to be able to charge up really quick, head back out and complete another route. But then at night, I'm using that same charger to charge slow. And that's where these chargers are smart. They use charge management software to help you kind of optimize that. We're not using anything proprietary with regards to charging. So we're just using what's called the CCS1 combo charge port. So very readily available. While public stations typically work with our trucks, the challenge there is that there's not typically space for a commercial vehicle. So that's where fleets really need to look at having charging on site until there is a public charging network built for heavy duty trucks. A lot of concern about batteries or just uncertainty in the industry. And we're doing something a little bit different than the majority of OEMs. And we're using a chemistry called lithium iron phosphate. And this is a long life chemistry that's suited for the truck industry. What I mean by that is that most of our competitors are using automotive batteries and just putting more of them on the truck. And those automotive chemistries, they work great when new, they pack a lot of power for their weight, but they quickly degrade. So you're going to see 2 times the life out of an LFP. And that's important because obviously the duty cycle of your truck is much more significant than your car that drives to work, getting groceries, maybe a road trip every quarter, you're charging it every couple of days. These trucks need to charge quick, they need to charge frequently. You're requiring a lot of power demand from them as you climb, heavy grit, long grades loaded. So having twice that life of the LFP is really going to be critical. We expect this battery to be a lifetime of the vehicle in many cases. So it's not going to be uncommon to hit 500,000, 800,000 miles potentially from this battery. You're going to see degradation, you're going to see range reduction, but it's a long life battery compared to our competitors that will be replacing batteries at midlife. We back it with a 6-year, 200,000 mile standard warranty. And another benefit of LFP is it's a much safer chemistry. So these batteries undergo puncture testing, exposure to direct flame, and it's a much safer chemistry in that even if a battery cell does catch on fire, it's very unlikely that that's going to propagate through the entire battery. Whereas with automotive chemistries, you'd typically be looking at a loss of asset. And as you know, liability for our commercial customers, much more significant than when you're driving your personal vehicle. And lastly, there's no cobalt in our LFP batteries. And there's some really significant ethical concerns and environmental concerns with the way cobalt's being mined today. And at this point, our competitors seem to be ignoring that. So transitioning to our Class 8 product, this is our T680E. We've taken our T680, again, our diesel platform. It's our best-selling truck, and we've converted it to EV. So it's great for port drayage, last mile, hub and spoke applications, 150 miles of range, and that's at 82,000 pound gross combination weight. Now that's because, again, we get that 2,000 pound weight allowance for an EV vehicle. Pretty limited option configurations. In order to enter production as quickly as we did, we really kind of had to limit things. And that's tough for us. We're one of the most custom truck builders that there is. It's available in 190 and 216-inch wheelbase. Typically, a fleet's going to use this in a tractor application. However, we've got several customers that want to put these in flatbed operations, self-loading cranes, lumber yards, things like that. We'll talk about how it's a little bit different. We're using a Meritor E-axle on this platform. We'll talk about the battery, the same chemistry that we're using on our K-Series. It's standard with disc brakes on all axles, standard with Bendix Fusion collision mitigation. And this is available with an EPTO. The K series is as well. I forgot to mention, it's available with an inverter that provides up to 10 kilowatts of power, allows a bodybuilder to either run electric accessories or electric over hydraulic functionality to run things like the bucket truck that I mentioned earlier. We also have build openings for this truck in third and fourth quarter of this year. So instead of the midship motor, because we're running, I see a question came in on the chat. So this is a classic T680. We have not upgraded the EV to our next gen. So looking at the picture, you'll see that it's our classic 680. And that's because we were developing this product at the same time as we were developing the next gen product. And it was sort of too many things going on at once in order to really bring the truck to market. So it's built on the classic platform with the classic hood. And you'll see that transition in the future. But because we're hauling 82,000 pounds, it's difficult to get the startability and the top speed you need with a direct drive powertrain. So here we're using the Meritor 14X e-axle. It's built on conventional housings, but it's got a 200 kilowatt motor on each axle with a 2-speed integrated transmission. So that's seamless to the driver. The driver is not having to shift. The driver typically doesn't even notice the shift because these shift at different points. So again, the driver is going to notice really good acceleration and really smooth acceleration. Ton of power from the e-axles. It is impressive to drive this truck fully loaded, up to 670 peak horsepower and 540 continuous power. And what we mean by continuous is, let's say everything's really hot, the batteries, the drive axles, you just climbed a huge grade. It can sustain 540 horsepower until the end of time. So that's the continuous power rating of the axle. Again, though, we've metered performance so that it's going to perform similar to diesel. We want to delight the driver. We want to help with productivity, but we don't want to give the driver unlimited power. Just to show you a little bit of the layout, this is a truck that we're essentially building on the assembly line. We're building it in Renton, Washington. We set the power controls and accessories, which is under the hood in place of the engine. We're setting that on the main engine line. We're putting axles on the main assembly line. And power controls and accessories contains all of the electronics that kind of communicate between the drive system and the cab. And then all of our accessories on our EVs are electrified. So your power steering pump, your AC compressor, and your air compressor are all driven off of individual electric motors. So that means that those only run when they need to. They run at the speed they need to. So there's a lot of efficiency gains, in stop and go applications, high idle applications. You're not spinning these accessories all the time like you would on a conventional engine because it's attached with the accessory belt. So idle time, wait times, stationary applications are really going to be a great fit for EV. Accessories don't use as much power as one might think, for as large as our batteries are and as small as like the cab is for heating and cooling the cab, it's really not a major impact to range. We've got significant amount of batteries on our 680. I'll show you on the next slide, 400 kilowatts batteries mounted both in between and outside the rails. This is about 9,000 pounds of batteries to support that 150 miles. And a lot of customers are probably thinking, boy, 150 miles isn't enough. And we certainly understand that, but we've really optimized the range of this vehicle for the weight. We could add enough batteries to go 400 miles, but all you'll be hauling is batteries. So it's really been optimized for freight efficiency. We know that 150 doesn't work for everyone. Fleets are trying to change operations to make it work, but that freight efficiency is really important. So we've really right-sized the batteries. And we're actually one of the lightest in our class at about 22,500 pounds. So that is probably about 6,000 pounds heavier than a diesel comparable. So you're going to see about a 4,000 pound payload reduction compared to a diesel tractor. Regenerative braking is handled just with our column mounted shifter and our multi-position switch. So very similar to an engine brake that drivers are used to. Same battery chemistry we're using in our K series, except it's 400 kilowatt hour capacity. It's backed with a 5-year, 500,000 mile warranty. And it charges in about 3 to 4 hours. Again, our customers are concerned about charging and infrastructure. So we've got a line of chargers to support our customers. And infrastructure is an important thing to consider because a T680E, for example, requires about 400 kilowatts to completely charge. An average household in the US uses about 35 kilowatts. So that's equivalent to about 11 to 12 homes worth of power. We've got a line of 10 different chargers that we're selling through our dealerships. This gives us the flexibility to lease chargers, to finance chargers, and really just provide that one-stop end-to-end solution for customers. Just to give you an idea of cost, it can be significant. This is before incentives. We kind of consider a 50 kilowatt to be the minimum. For a T680, for example, takes about 8 hours to charge, and that cost is going to be about 75 to 125,000. It's a large range, but it really depends on how much power you've got at your site to support that. And then the 180, this is a 2-truck capable charging charger, and a range of costs shown there at the bottom. These are all available with credit card readers, RFID readers, so there's opportunity to make these chargers public if that's something you'd like to do, or to open it up to employees and things like that. And then infrastructure, we're partnered with NTech Solutions and Schneider Electric, and they can come into your fleet, provide really, again, end-to-end solution, everything from working with the utility to engineering, to trenching, to putting in the power, to commissioning the chargers. To help you grow your fleet and convert over to EV. They've got a lot of experience with EV projects, not just EV chargers, but a lot of renewable projects, looking at the overall power at your facility, solar, battery storage, microgrids. So a lot of capability when it comes to energy projects. And lastly, just something to think about is if you're thinking about electric trucks, you really need to be thinking about the infrastructure right away, because the timelines on these projects are significant, especially in high complexity projects. So as soon as you start thinking about a truck, we want to make sure we're evaluating for infrastructure immediately. Okay, sorry, I did go a little bit over time. It's a challenge to get all of that information packed into 25 minutes. I did my best. Chad, do you want to open it up to questions?
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Appreciate the presentation. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat button or the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. First question, how much efficiency range is lost in extreme heat or cold weather? And then if you could answer, go ahead, you can answer that one.
Yeah, so efficiency range in cold weather, it's sort of one of those things that depends, and it can be significant. For example, if you let a vehicle cold soak all weekend, it wasn't on the charger, even if it's fully charged, and you go in on Monday and you want to drive that truck and it's negative temperatures, the batteries need to be warmed up. So they're using a lot of their own energy to warm those batteries. So you're going to potentially see a 30% range reduction in that case. That being said, you can really mitigate a lot of that by using charger management software or reinitializing the charge so that the charger is warming the batteries, so that you're at 100%, you unplug, the batteries are already warmed, and you're going to see really in negative temperatures, maybe a 10% reduction in range. One of the benefits are you're not having to cool those batteries as much, or you're not having to cool the powertrain as much. So hot temperatures, not as significant as cold temperatures. But again, it's really one of those things that it just depends, and that's just a reality of battery electric vehicles. But there's a lot of things that can be done to mitigate that. Go ahead, Chad.
Has anyone asked to have reduced inspection requirements on EVs? In particular, California requires a 90-day inspections.
Yeah, so we've got some stakeholders in our after sales group that are working with DOT and inspections to to try to figure out what needs to change with respect to EVs. At this time, nothing has been changed as far as EVs are concerned. I don't think there will be reduced inspection requirements necessarily, especially initially as DOT and state inspectors kind of get up to speed with EVs. There's also, some important things with inspection. There may be less maintenance on an EV vehicle, but we want to make sure safety labels are in place. We want to make sure battery cables aren't rubbing through. So I think that's something that the industry will see evolve, and we'll optimize kind of our maintenance procedures and inspection procedures, but it's probably going to be something that's not going to happen overnight.
Okay. Next question, what is the expected life expectancy of the batteries?
Yeah, so expected life of batteries is something that kind of depends. I alluded to it in our slides, but we're using a long life chemistry, and the supplier rates the batteries kind of in a worst case scenario, what they call 1C charging, which is faster than we can even charge the batteries. So let's pretend you're charging them super fast every time. They rate it to 4,000 charge cycles to what they consider 70% state of health. And 4,000 charge cycles, let's say you're doing a 680, 130 miles a day, we'll just be conservative. That's 520,000 miles. And that's not to where those batteries are dead. That's where you're kind of having trouble completing the same long hauls that you did when this truck was new. So again, we really expect that these batteries can be on vehicles 10 plus years, well over 500,000 miles.
Okay, next question. What is the mile range at 60,000 pound total weight?
Yeah, so again, that's one of those things that it depends. Range is really dependent on the route, air pressure, the driver, speed. 65 miles per hour is a great application for a diesel because you're in the efficiency range of the engine, you're at top gear, you don't have that transient state that reduces fuel economy. With EV, you're just fighting aerodynamics that whole time. So really speed is kind of a bad thing on EVs. Stop and go or kind of that transient state is a better fit for EVs. And you're also able to take advantage of that regenerative braking. So we can help you analyze your route. It's just one of those things that it depends.
All right, then last question, can you run a PTO?
Yeah, so on our K series, we've got an inverter to provide power for running a PTO. We work closely with the bodybuilder to source an electric over hydraulic pump. On the 680, we have two options. We can provide connections to the high voltage batteries. There's now a lot of aftermarket options coming to market that is powered by that 650 volts, whether it's electric over hydraulic pumps or it's accessories, or we have a factory e-motor that allows a hydraulic pump to be mounted to it. I think it's an SAE-C combo, so just your standard hydraulic pumps, and that allows you to run wet kits and trailer hydraulic accessories.
All right. I don't see that there's any more questions. Want to thank you, Brett, for coming on and give us your insight on Kenworth's solution for EV zero emission vehicles. Before we wrap this up, I want to let everybody know we're excited to announce that Rihm Kenworth has placed an order for 2 EV vehicles, a T680E day cab tractor and a K270E straight truck. Expected delivery, rough time frame, I guess early fourth quarter. We're really excited to get those in your hands, let customers try them out, run them with a trailer, run the straight truck, see what you think. I think it's exciting technology, and we're also ordered a charger that we're going to have hopefully in place by that time frame as well. So exciting technology that's only going to get more out there and more customers interested in it. And obviously the government's pushing it. So thanks again. If this is recorded, so if you need the recording sent to you, we can do that. Otherwise, I'm sure there's other areas, maybe on our Facebook page and other things where you can find it. So thanks again, everybody. Appreciate you coming on.